The Dodgers are about to make a decision that's going to define their entire 2025 season, and I'm not sure they're approaching it the right way. Everyone's focused on the shiny objects, the big names, the players who are going to generate headlines and sell jerseys. But the real question the front office needs to answer isn't who's the most talented player available. It's who actually fits what this team needs right now, and are they willing to pay what it's going to cost to get that player? Because let me tell you, the gap between what people think the Dodgers should do and what they're probably going to do is getting wider by the day. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The starting rotation just lost significant depth, and while everyone wants to talk about position players and outfielders, the pitching staff is where this team could actually fall apart if they're not careful. Walker Buehler is gone. Clayton Kershaw's future is uncertain at best. Dustin May can't stay healthy. Tony Gonsolin is coming off another injury. You've got Yoshinobu Yamamoto at the top, which is great, but after him, it gets sketchy real fast. Tyler Glasnow, when he's healthy, is elite, but that's a massive if considering his injury history. Bobby Miller struggled last year and needs to prove he can be consistent. Gavin Stone showed flashes, but is he ready to be a legitimate number 3 starter over a full season? These are real questions without clear answers. The free agent pitching market is thin, really thin. Corbin Burns is the big name everyone points to, but his price tag is going to be astronomical, and the Dodgers have already shown they're hesitant to give out massive contracts to pitchers in their 30s. Max Fried is another option, but same issue. You're looking at 7 or 8 years and north of $200 million for a guy who's about to turn 31. Is that really where you want to commit that kind of money when you've already got Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman eating up massive chunks of payroll? I'm not convinced it is. This is where the conversation should shift to guys who can give you innings without costing you the entire budget. Jack Flaherty just had a solid year, and he's going to be more affordable than Burns or Fried. He's not going to blow you away, but he can give you 170 innings of slightly above average pitching. That matters over a long season. Sean Manaea is another name that makes sense if the price is right. He reinvented himself with the Mets last year and looked like a completely different pitcher in the second half. Would that carry over? Who knows? But at the right annual value, he's worth the gamble. The bullpen is another area that needs serious attention, and I don't think people realize how much they're going to miss the arms they lost. Evan Phillips is still there, which is great, but who's setting him up? Who's getting you through the 7th and 8th innings on nights when the starter can't get deep into games? You need multiple high-leverage relievers, not just one closer and a bunch of guys you're crossing your fingers on. Tanner Scott is out there, and he's one of the best lefty relievers in baseball. He'd be perfect in that setup role, giving you a weapon against the top of opposing lineups. Jeff Hoffman is another name that makes a ton of sense. He was dominant for the Phillies last year and can throw in high-leverage spots without falling apart. But here's the thing that's driving me crazy about how the Dodgers are approaching this offseason. They keep getting linked to these massive name position players when their real needs are on the mound. Yes, the outfield needs help. Yes, they could use more depth at first base and third base. But if your pitching staff implodes in June because you didn't add enough quality arms, none of that matters. You can have the best offense in baseball and still lose in the playoffs if you can't get outs consistently. We've seen it happen before. The Roki Sasaki situation is fascinating because if they land him, it changes everything. You're talking about adding a potential ace-level talent on an incredibly team-friendly contract because of the international signing rules. That would give them Yamamoto, Sasaki, and Glasnow at the top of the rotation, which is as good as anyone in baseball when healthy. But you can't bank your entire pitching plan on landing Sasaki and keeping everyone healthy. That's insane. You need contingency plans. You need depth. You need guys who can step in when injuries inevitably happen. The other angle nobody's talking about enough is what happens if they go all in on pitching and punt on the position player market. What if instead of spending $200 million on Kyle Tucker or trying to bring back Cody Bellinger at an inflated price, they spend that money on 2 or 3 quality starters who can give you innings and stability? What if they sign Jack Flaherty and Sean Manaea and still have money left over to add a reliever or two? Suddenly, your rotation is Yamamoto, Glasnow, Flaherty, Manaea, and Stone, with Miller and whoever else competing for that 5th spot. That's a lot deeper than what they're currently looking at. The problem is that it doesn't generate the same excitement as signing a big name outfielder. Fans want the splash moves. They want to see Tucker and Dodger Blue mashing balls into the pavilion. But smart team building isn't always about the splash. Sometimes it's about identifying the actual weaknesses and addressing them with multiple solid moves instead of one blockbuster. The 2020 Dodgers team that won the World Series wasn't built on a bunch of superstars. It was built on depth and guys who could contribute in different ways. That's the model they should be following. Here's another reality check. The luxury tax penalties are real, and they're going to start affecting the Dodgers' ability to operate if they keep blowing past the thresholds every single year. At some point, ownership is going to tap the brakes and tell Andrew Friedman he needs to be smarter about how he's spending. We might already be at that point. If that's the case, then you have to prioritize. Do you spend $40 million a year on Kyle Tucker, or do you spend that same money on 3 pitchers who give you depth and flexibility? I know which one I'm choosing. The trade market for pitching is also something they should be exploring more aggressively. Guys like Garrett Crochet from the White Sox are going to be available, and he's controlled for multiple years at a reasonable price. Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins is another name that makes sense if Miami is willing to move him. These are guys who are younger, cheaper, and give you more long-term control than signing a 32-year-old free agent to a 7-year deal that's going to look terrible by year 5. What frustrates me is that the Dodgers have all the resources in the world. They have the best front office in baseball. They have analytics and scouting and player development that's second to none. But they keep getting pulled into these bidding wars for big-name free agents when they should be zigging while everyone else is zagging. Find the market inefficiencies. Target the guys who are undervalued. Build depth instead of top-heavy star power. That's how you sustain success over multiple years instead of mortgaging the future for one championship window. The starting pitching is the biggest need on this roster right now, and if they don't address it properly, they're going to regret it. You can't go into a season hoping Walker Buehler's replacement magically appears from within the organization. You can't bank on Clayton Kershaw being healthy and effective at his age. You can't assume Dustin May is suddenly going to stay on the field. These are knowns, not unknowns. The solution is staring them in the face. Go get multiple quality starting pitchers, shore up the bullpen, and trust that your offense is good enough to win games even without adding another superstar bat. That's the move. That's what championship teams do.